Oh, hey, good morning, guys. I was just out here doing one of my favorite things, bird watching and bird calling. You know, I call birds, they rarely respond. I was thinking today, though, about different kinds of churches, right? And I like this term, different church strokes for different church folks. I was also thinking, like, birds of a feather flock together, right? And so I got to thinking, like, what are the different kinds of birds? And you know, there's different names for the groupings of birds, right? There's a murder of crows, a cast of merlins, a gaggle of geese, right? A convocation of eagles, a cover of coots, a mural of buntings, a chime of wrens, a scold of jays, a conspiracy of ravens, a tidings of magpies, a bellowing of bullfinches, an exultation of larks, right? And I was thinking, like, different churches are kind of like different kinds of birds, right? And I was thinking, you know, the Catholic Church is like crows, a murder of crows, right? Black, they always wear black, right? And they kind of killed a lot of people. So, wow, that's kind of like the Catholic Church, right? I was thinking merlins are like Methodists, maybe. Eagles are like Episcopalians, you know, they're more the Orthodox, refined church. They're a convocation of eagles. I was thinking Protestants are like a scold of jays, because Protestants are always scolding people for not being the right kind of Christian, right? They're the protestants. They protest things. And this is what the Protestant church has done throughout its history. Is like, it separated from the Catholic Church because the Catholic Church wasn't right. And then it just started separating from itself over, you know, about 1,000 times. That, right? Then, like a conspiracy of ravens. That's like a cultic church, right? Or a cult, or a Christian cult. It's like, well, we're the right people and nobody else is right, and we got to go away and really isolate, right? And an exaltation of larks was like kind of the Pentecostal church, because they're very flamboyant and expressive, right? And I was thinking about that and kind of having fun with that idea. But I was also thinking about my church journey. You know, I've been a part of a lot of different kinds of churches throughout my journey. I've been a Christian for 41 years. I was born into the Churches of Christ movement, the Restoration movement. It was a non-denominational church movement. It was an attempt to get back to what they called the primitive gospel. But you know, every church movement typically is this Reformation mentality of like, we need to get back because we've kind of wandered away from the core things of Christ. And so there's been all these different movements. And it's been fun for me to explore. I love church history. I'm a church historian. It's fascinating to me. I don't really have a bias towards any church. I've enjoyed every church I've been in. And you know what? Every church I've been in at different times and different seasons of my life has been the church that I needed at that time. But guess what? I've always grown out of it. I've always grown out of that church and moved on to another, because every church has suited me for a season. But after that season, I moved on. And I think that's good. Like, I really do believe different church strokes for different church folks. And I think that's fine. I think it's okay to find that a certain kind of church fits you at a certain kind of season. What I don't think is okay is this superiority complex and this, this idea that whatever church you're a part of is the best church and it's the right church and it's the only church, right? There's this real funny pastor joke that I just think is really great. It's like, you know, this guy dies, goes to heaven. He's walking around heaven and St. Peter's giving him the tour. And he's going around and there's all these different Christians from all these different churches. And he notices that they're up on this hill really far away from everybody else. There's this group of people. And the dude asks St. Peter, he's like, what kind of Christians are those? And he's like, oh, those are the Catholic Christians. They think they're the only ones here. If the church you're at really fits you at that time, then you're going to think it's the best church. But it's not. There is no best church, guys. There is no one kind of church There is no one-size-fits-all kind of church, and I think that's fine. There is the church, and there are churches, though. The church is this overarching ideal that we have before us, right? There is one church. Scripture says there is one Lord, one baptism, one body of believers. And so I think it's good to have flavors and to understand that what you need at one time, one season in your life may not be at another season or may not work at another season. It's okay to understand you're growing, right? And there can be different churches for different kinds of people. But there is also one church. There are many different churches, lowercase c, but one church, uppercase C. What is that about? Okay. And how do we sometimes get so sucked into this subculture of Christian that we lose the idea of the big church, big C church? We get so stuck in little C church, we can't understand big C church. Well, both exist, right? And both have existed. If you're a Catholic, you belong to the current Catholic Church. If you went back 200 years or 500 years, right? You might be surprised. Actually, a Catholic today would be burned at the stake 500 years ago. Why? Because they're reading the Bible in a colloquial language. Ouch! So, before you get all high and mighty and think, my church is superior, my church is the best, go visit your church 200 years ago. They might kill you. Just FYI. Perspective, right? POV. So, hey, have your point of view. Understand that the church you're at probably fits you best right now. But it's not a one-size-fits-all kind of church, guys. Like, it's a very immature perspective to think your church is the best church and everybody should go to your church. I love to read church marquees, guys. This is probably the most common phrase I see on church marquees. Everybody's welcome. Every time I see that on a church marquee, I want to grab a homeless person or a trans person and march them into the church with me and go, hey, everybody's welcome, right? Or I want to, I'm just like, no, guys, come on. Like, advertising that everybody's welcome and everybody would love your church. Bullshit. Guys, come on. That's not even the goal. It's okay to have different flavors of church. It's not okay to think that your church is the best church. That's a very immature perspective. And I think we could really say there are three kinds of general stages of Christian growth. There is infancy, adolescence, and adulthood, right? And Scripture makes these distinctions, It talks about this kind of maturity. And just as natural maturity happens, spiritual maturity should also happen. Infant Christians are very concerned about being right and being at the right church. It's a very immature attitude. Well, because that's what they need, right? When you're an infant, you don't know much about anything. You don't know how to eat meat. You have to be spoon-fed. And so you want to make sure that you're in the safe place that's very protective. And you need a very strongly disciplined church when you're an infant, or a church that's going to really do a lot for you because you can't do much for yourself. And so your focus is going to be security. Am I at the right church? Am I believing the right truths? Because I don't know how to do these things for myself, and so I need a real authoritarian kind of church, right? Adolescence is a time of discovering freedoms, and so the adolescent stage of Christianity would be more akin to a church that is more open for you to explore, ask questions, doubt, wrestle. And so a church that's more of a teaching kind of church, which is like not just telling you what to believe and telling you you're right and you're okay and it's okay and you don't need to worry because you've got the right truth and you're with the right pastor, right? Adolescence would be about, hey, I'm going to explore. I'm going to discover myself. I'm going to reject some things and I'm going to learn some new things. And then the last stage would be where you really have a great openness and you are able to tolerate many different kinds of Christians. And you don't need to be so strict in your idea of who you're around, because you're not concerned. Because when you're developed and established in yourself, you're not concerned about people believing different things. Guys, the more fearful you are of other Christian views, the less developed you are in your own. That's just the truth. Immature Christians that don't know how to discern truth for themselves are very afraid of anything that doesn't look like the truth they've been trained to recognize, right? What's the goal in Christianity? As we mature, the goal is to develop a relationship with the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit on our own for ourselves. Is your church facilitating your relationship because you don't know God and you couldn't recognize God on your own? Well, then you're a baby. You're an infant. You're not even an adolescent trying to step out on your own. Are you afraid of going out into the world, even the Christian world, and discovering other flavors of Christianity and other denominations and other theologies outside of your own? If you're fearful, then you're a little kid that needs to be kept in a playpen. So you're a baby Christian in a playpen, and you're afraid of what's outside the playpen. An adolescent Christian is like, that's when you start to explore, and you're going to launch out on your own, and you're journeying towards young adulthood or into young adulthood when you want to ground and found yourself in your own identity. That's natural. Often in that stage, we reject the church we grew up in, whatever it might be, because it was strict, and we needed that kind of strict disciplinary environment. But guys, this is just a truth. This is just a life truth. Those who do not know how to discipline themselves need others to do it for them. If you do not know how to be a disciplined person, you will need more rules and more structure to do that for you. What that means though, guys, is you're immature and you will not choose to do what is good for yourself on your own. You need someone to force it upon you. That's not good. That's not right. That means you're a baby or a toddler and you're going to run out in traffic and kill yourself if someone's not there to tell you no, hold your hand, or keep you inside a fence, or keep you strapped to them like a dog. You know what I'm talking about. When people go in public with toddlers on a leash, because they know that toddler is going to run off and do something that's harmful and they could die. So, are you a Christian on a leash because you do not know how to discipline yourself, how to feed yourself, how to change your own diaper, how to go to the potty? That's not good, guys. We are meant to be growing into relationship with God. And what is relationship really? I think as we grow into God, we no longer attempt to do Christian things because we have to, or it's the rule. We start to do them because we love our Father and we love our brother and we love the Spirit, and we are caught up in the goodness of these things, right? A mature Christian is someone who does what is right and good because of love, because they know that it is good and they have a relationship with the Father and they want to do what is good and pleasing to the Father. Not because it's a rule and I have to do it and it's duty, right? Christians bound up in duty and rules and being right and trying to be better than others have not grown very much at all. They're dependent on others. They've not left and had their own journey. A lot of people today, guys, are caught up in a religiosity, a Christian religiosity that is based in fear because they're too afraid, and they've been taught to be afraid of the big bad world, and they've been kept like sheep in a pen. You know what happens when you crowd a bunch of sheep in a pen and lock them in the pen? They eat all the grass, they stomp on the ground, it turns muddy, they get filthy, and then they run out of food and they die. Like, Jesus talks about being a good shepherd that leads his sheep out of the pen into the wide pasture lands of the world. Do you know how to follow Jesus in the world? Or are you so afraid that you got to go to the right church and you got to believe the right things and you can't hang out with even the wrong kind of Christians? Immaturity, guys. That's immaturity. The ultimate goal for every Christian is freedom. If the Son sets you free, you will be free indeed. It is for freedom that Christ has set you free. Only do not use your freedom as a license to sin. Like what do young adolescents and young adults often do when they first get a taste of freedom in the world? They go to college or whatever, or they get their first job in their first apartment. Sometimes they go too far and they overindulge, right? Because they haven't been trained and they haven't learned, right? So it's a balance. Like, you have to step out into freedom and then learn how to be responsible with that freedom. But that's the process, guys. If you're not learning and growing into freedom, into relationship with God, having your own relationship with God, coming to understand that you don't need a pastor to tell you everything that's right anymore, and you can disagree with your pastor, and you can disagree with your denomination, and you maybe you don't even need a denomination anymore. Maybe you don't even need a organizational, institutional church to do everything for you anymore. Maybe you've developed your own little small group, your own morning breakfast, your own men's breakfast, your own women's group on your own in your own house, or at a park, or at a local civic center, or community center. And guess what? Because you don't need an institution and a pen and a fence and a playground anymore to tell you what's good and to protect you from what isn't. You can hang around with other Christians. You can go see what the Catholic Church is about. You can go read some Catholic literature, or you can read some Episcopalian literature, and you can talk to an Episcopalian priest, and you can go to an evangelical church. And like every church you go to is good. Like that's how you know you're mature. You're not afraid of the kind of Christianity that wasn't what you were raised with. You're not afraid of different kinds of Christians. You're not even afraid of different kinds of spirituality. You can even read some Buddhist literature and go, I can see some of Jesus in that, or I can see some spiritual truth in that. And I can actually adopt some of that, and that's okay. I'm not afraid. I'm no longer afraid, because there is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out all fear. When you know you are loved by the Father and you experience that love, you have a confidence to move through the world without fear. If the Son sets you free, you will be free indeed. That's the goal. It's okay that there are different flavors of church, different kinds of churches. It's okay that some churches are more strict, some are more open. It's not okay for different kinds of churches to criticize each other and to say they're the wrong church and we're the right church. And like, it's good that you like your church, guys. You like your church because it fits where you are. And it doesn't mean you should ever leave your church necessarily, but here's an idea. What if local churches actually had many different kinds of expressions within that local body, and you didn't have to leave your local church to grow? I think that's sorely lacking in the church today, guys. We have churches that have honed in so tightly on a specialty. And if you're not that specialty, you're almost like reprobate. You're almost a heretic if you don't believe everything and do everything the way this church or that church does. I think every church should really have different levels of teaching, different levels of activity, different levels of freedom. But today, guys, most churches are so insulated, isolated, and hyper-controlled by leaders because they're pastor-centric and they're theologically centric, right? And if you don't believe the right things and look the right way and obey the right authorities, then you're a heretic and you're kicked out. Well, so we basically have a lot of churches today that are just full of babies and authoritative babysitters, and that's it. And you either believe what the pastor believes or you leave. So I think we've gotten to a place in the church today, the Western church especially, that it's just a babysitter church, and it's a church full of babies, and nobody's really growing anymore and maturing. How do we know? You can tell when a church is full of a bunch of infants and authoritative leaders when we're all divided, calling people names, and we can't even associate with other Christians not like us. All right. Hey guys, birds of a feather may flock together, but the birds that truly soar aren't afraid of other varieties of birds, right? So, are you a murder of crows? Are you a cast of merlins, a gaggle of geese, a convocation of eagles, a cover of coots, a mural of buntings, a chime of wrens, a scold of jays, a conspiracy of ravens, a tiding of magpies, a bellowing of bullfinches, an exultation of larks? Or are you all of those things and more? Huh? Something to think about. Now back to my bird watching. Love you guys. See ya.